Wanted to provide you with a little bit of help on a couple of homework problems. These two problems typically give people a little trouble. They are a little bit unique from the rest of the problems that you're doing, so I just thought I'd give you a little bit of help. They are just a little different. They have just a little bit different twist than the ones we did in class, so I just want to point that out to you. It is true that we still take natural log equations, any log equation for that matter, but this happens to be a natural log equation, and I need to change this into exponential form. Remember that the base of a natural log is e, and in this case I'm going to be raising e to the third power, and I'm going to let that equal t minus 1 squared. Okay, so at this point, if you want to grab your calculator, you're going to find out what e to the third power is, and I'm going to do the same thing. Raise e to the third power, and that should be 20 point, we'll just go ahead and round it 3 decimal places, 20.086. All right, and now at this point, remember, we need to do the square root of both sides, and what I would do to make this a little bit easier, I would just leave that number in your calculator and use the little caret button and put 1/2 in parentheses. So we're going to raise that number to the 1/2 power, that way you don't have to retype it using the radical. So raise that to the parentheses 1 divided by 2 power, end your parentheses. And remember, this is what makes this problem just a little bit different. I did a square root, even root on both sides, so I have to make sure I include plus minus 4.482. All right, so I did the square root of both sides, got my plus minus, and now I'm going to solve for t. And basically, you're solving for t with two equations. You're going to let t minus 1 equal positive 4.482. And then you're going to let t minus 1 equal negative 4.482. Okay, so on one hand, I add 1 and I get t is 5.482. And over here, if I add 1, I get negative 3.482. Okay, and then just taking a look, remember I told you earlier that you cannot ever evaluate the log of a negative number. So at the outset, you might disregard this negative answer, but take a closer look. If we let t be negative 3.482 minus 1, that makes it negative 4.482. But then when we square that, when we square a negative number, it makes it positive. So as it turns out, we're not evaluating the log of a negative number after raising it to the second power. So both of these answers are valid. But you always want to check. First, there's two things to be careful about. Remember, plus minus when you end up doing an even root on both sides of an equation. And then if you do end up with a negative number, make sure that it makes sense. You cannot do the log of a negative number, but that doesn't happen here. All right. Another problem that gives people a little trouble, so I thought I'd give you a little heads up, is number 22. Well, for number 22, before I can change this into exponential equation form, I need to apply one of our properties. It's the power property. I'm going to make 2 become the exponent for 2x squared. So you really have to think about this in this way. And this is where a lot of people miss this. I'm squaring this entire monomial 2x squared. So without parentheses, it would be 4x to the 4th. Okay, now I'm ready to write this as an exponential equation, base e. E to the first equals 4x to the 4th. Okay, So you can go ahead and do e to the first, and your calculator should tell you that's 2.718281828 if I remember correctly. And on and on and on. All right, so just leave that number in your calculator. And then to solve for x, we first have to divide that number by 4. All right, so let me write down what we have so far so you can check your calculator. I'll go ahead and write the whole thing out. 0.679570457. All right, and now I'm going to be doing a fourth root on both sides. So again, I have to include plus minus in my answer. So another way of doing a fourth root, this is basically what we're doing. But in your calculator, once again, just hit this button, little caret button, and then make sure you use parentheses around 1/4. So in essence, we're raising that long decimal to the 1/4 power. But it is important that you put 1/4 in parentheses. All right, and so we end up with plus minus 0.908, rounding to 3 decimal places. Okay, now, once again, let's go back to the original problem. All right, I'll clean this up a little bit. And let's just see if the negative number, that's the one we're usually worried about, does the negative number work? Are we going to be evaluating the log of a negative number? Well, if we substitute negative 0.908 in for x and square it, it's no longer negative. So we're not going to be evaluating the log of a negative number. Both of these answers are valid in this case. Okay, so those were two that were a little different. You should not, at least for the ones that you're doing, you should not have to worry about getting two answers on any other problems. As a matter of fact, just for watching, you can pause here if you like. I just thought I would give you the answers to the other problems on 465 and 466, the equations that you had to solve. Obviously, you just want to make sure you show your work and you understand how to get these answers. But there they are, and I hope that helps you, and let me know if you have any questions.